How's it going, everybody? Welcome to the next episode of Smashified. I am RT Omni, and today I am joined by Chris.
Hey everybody, how you doing?
So today we're looking at a character that is another commission, right on the tail end of Drifter. This one is Hat Kid from A Hat in Time. Now, if you're not familiar with A Hat in Time, it was a Kickstarter project that was funded back in 2013. And essentially, the game is a 3D platformer in the same vein as games like Mario 64, Banjo-Kazooie. It was definitely took a lot of cues from Banjo-Kazooie in general, to the point that JonTron, who's a huge fan of the game, actually got to voice a character in it. So it's that kind of era, 64 especially, but some of the GameCube generation as well. But yeah, this is a character that got pretty well funded. It was $300,000, I believe, when it hit Kickstarter, which was...
Yeah, just to be clear, that's not how much we were paid to do this episode.
Right. Of course not. But yeah, that's similar to things like Shovel Knight. So this is definitely one of those more high-profile Kickstarter projects. Yeah. Of course, we always get people who, in our comments, don't quite know who some of these characters are that come from Kickstarter, but I feel like this is one of the bigger ones.
Yeah, and plus it's a nice way for them to discover these characters. I mean, just like Drifter, this is definitely a character who's obviously well put together, well created. The games are impressive. I mean, this one's not out yet. It comes out supposedly this summer, but it's looking impressive. And if you're a big fan of those sort of 3D platformer games like Banjo-Kazooie or Mario or Donkey Kong 64, it's sort of another one of those. It's what would you call, like a
sandbox open world kind of 3D platformer, rather than the linear ones like Galaxy and 3D World, especially, because that's when 2013 was the current year.
So long
games
ago.
like that weren't as common. Like Mario 3D World was coming out for Wii U, and things were a lot more linear. Things were a lot more approachable, and so the folks at Gears for Breakfast, which is the company that's making this, decided to try to resurrect that sort of gameplay style. And of course, even though by this year, 2017, we've got games like Yooka-Laylee on the horizon, and Mario Odyssey was announced for Switch. I feel like this game still can have a significant impact, just because I feel like stylistically and mechanically it still has some unique flavor to it. Like, if you look at games like Yooka-Laylee, there's definitely sort of a serene or calm sort of spirit to it, whereas I feel like A Hat in Time is definitely a little bit more intense in some moments. So I feel like... if you haven't seen any gameplay, check out the trailers. I think Pro Jared actually did a playthrough of one of the early builds, so you can check it out there. You can hear JonTron's voice. It's good stuff. Yeah.
It seems like you're saying. It seems like a lot of fun, a lot of mayhem, hecticness is happening. A lot of things going on screen, as opposed to, like you're saying, Yooka-Laylee, which is more of a somber note in comparison, I suppose.
I don't know if I'd use that word, but yeah, I get what you're saying. Yeah. But looking at the artwork here, you saw Chris doing all of the base modeling before this, and right now I'm just going in, taking that super primitive head and then sculpting it to polish out the forms. Back to Chris, he's doing stuff like the cape.
Yeah, it's great. We've sort of really established our pipeline, our method to creating these characters in 3D, and they sort of resemble one another now. How many capes have we done now? It seems
3 in a row. Gino, Drifter, and now Hat Kid. It's getting a little bit silly, but I guess I'm getting more comfortable dealing with it, because for me it's a little bit difficult, because when you're dealing with a character that gets rigged, which we always do for our 3D characters, dealing with a cape with the automatic weights, the deformations that happen when you move the body really destroy the cape. So manually posing the cape is something that I've been dealing with lately, and I guess I'm okay with it now, but it was definitely something that I wasn't super comfortable with going into Drifter and things like that. Gino was a little bit easier to handle, just because it was sort of like a stiff, less flowy cape, so it's okay though. Doing the hair though, this was a fun thing to do after getting some good practice from Kumatora, just giving her like a little helmet of hair, and then extruding all these faces so that you can get the bangs and the sideburn looking things that are probably still just bangs. But I feel like this one went pretty smoothly compared to Kumatora, which was a lot more interpretation and hard to really parse what the forms should be with just a 2D sprite. With this one, we actually had their model that we could reference, so that was nice.
Yeah, we built a great turnaround sheet based off of that model, and then sort of modified from there, just looking at the original artwork done for the game, just to get an idea of more of what the original spirit was, that some sort of things that could have been lost during the process of their own 3D creation for their in-game asset.
Especially because when you look at some of the 2D concept art and then the transition into the 3D sort of GameCube style 3D model, definitely certain things always get lost in translation when you're taking something from 2D to 3D. And so we wanted to really try to capture some of the things that might have gotten set aside for the sake of ease of animation or things like that, where ours, we don't have to animate it, so we can kind of do certain things that might be more difficult to pull off if you actually have to make sure it functions in game, even though we still try to take those things into account as well, like what would be practical for a Smash model.
Yeah, I mean, we are given the liberty, the freedom to push beyond that and get sort of limitless in our own regards of texture and file size. You know, we don't have to limit to an in-game asset, but we do try to get our topology, our rigs to be as nice and smooth as possible, because these are items that we obviously hand off to our audience at some point. You know, over on our Patreon page, you can access these models later. So that's something we definitely keep in mind throughout the process.
Yeah, for sure. Looking at this detail sculpt here, this is one of the things, along with the head, that was eventually retopologized to make that low poly mesh that we could actually use for deformation for the rig.
What's your thought process when you're retopologizing something like this hair that's somewhat symmetrical in the back but not in the front? You know, like, it's a crazy shape.
Yeah, so things like the bangs were separated out into a separate mesh, and then the sideburns, back, and ponytail were all mirrored. So what I usually do is kind of find the hard edges and the sort of key contours that would guide the rest of the shapes, and then put those edges in first and then add the faces in after that. And I really want to get like a nice retopology plugin for Blender that Andrew's been showing me, but it's expensive, so maybe someday. But coming in here with the cape,
I didn't realize there was such things.
Yeah, there's like one that's really good, and it's on their marketplace, so I kind of want to try it out because it looks like it'll be helpful. It's certainly not on the level of things like ZBrush, but I still also need to learn ZBrush, but
is it all that automated? It's just something.
It's not automated, but it gives you more control, like rather than having to manually delete like an entire row of faces because you have to change one edge loop or something like that. You know, it gives you a little bit more fine control, and it keeps things kind of flexible. So.
Anyway, back to her cape. I noticed that all of our characters sort of have different capes. Drifter had 2 capes. One was kind of like a scarf. Gino has his awesome like star-shaped cape. Vati was kind of basic, kind of similar to this one.
Yeah,
actually.
Vati is similar to this one. It was definitely one of those things where, because it's sort of over the shoulder, it makes it a little bit harder to think about how it would actually animate and also how it would be rigged. So that's always a challenge, especially because the T-pose, it's so extreme in its position. So when her arms are at rest, you kind of have to take that into account, because the cape would essentially have to be stretched out for this T-pose, and then when her arms are at rest, it would have to still be dense enough, but not too dense where the shoulders are. I don't know if that makes any sense for people who aren't familiar with 3D, but yeah, it was a little bit of a challenge. The zipper that you're looking at here was another thing that I wanted to try to push a little bit farther than the original design, because the character design is pretty cartoony. Like, they don't have to really stipulate on a lot of those things, like how the zipper mechanism works, but because in Smash everything's so detailed, even for the cartoonier characters, so I wanted to try to create a zipper mechanism for that zipper that actually looks like it functions, which is probably a little bit more than Smash would actually demand, but that's okay. These eyes,
I'm enjoying watching this process, because it seems obviously I did almost all of the base mesh, and it's interesting seeing you going in and like taking the smallest tweaks that make the biggest difference to those objects.
Yeah, for sure. Those separated eye meshes are something that I kind of took a cue from characters like Toon Link and Lucas, where they just changed the textures of the eyes to make the eyes move around. I think they alter the UV coordinates to make the pupils move.
Yeah, it's one great big texture sheet of just different emotions.
Yep. And usually Smash models have like several facial expression meshes that they just swap in and out based on what they need. They don't actually interpolate between them, they just snap in and out.
That's fun. It'd be interesting to see if that could ever be done in like a vector space where they could actually move, you know what I mean? Like animation.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. Because I imagine most things that are vector, even though they can be like imported into 3D modeling, they generally get converted before they can be used in like a game engine. So I'd be curious to see if someone wanted to make a proprietary game engine that utilizes actual vector curves for a 3D model. That would be interesting. Oh, this zipper gave me a lot of trouble.
Did it?
Yeah, just trying to fit it in. And when it got posed, like the zipper was demolished, so I had to manually put the zipper back into the pose and just deform it myself. But yeah, one of the many challenges.
It is always fun seeing a hard surface model get destroyed by an organic.
Yeah, it's tough. I'm still not very comfortable with hard surface modeling in general. I feel like it's difficult compared to organic, where you can kind of let things bend the way that they want to. And hard surface, like, I have to imagine that in a Smash model, even stuff that's supposed to be rigid on a character still gets bent a lot.
Oh, for sure. It's so hard to make it not bend.
Yeah. Here's another part that Chris was doing, the umbrella. So Hat Kid's weapon of choice is a little blue umbrella with stars on it, and it looks very innocuous, but it's also a grappling hook. She can use it like kind of like Samus's grappling hook in Metroid.
The whole deal with her is she's not from our planet, right? She's just stopped here.
So she's a space traveler. She travels through space using time as her fuel, as far as I understand. And so she ran into an accident, like somebody busted the window in her ship, and then all of these hourglasses went flying out into space and landed on Earth. So she had to come down to Earth and discover our planet and also get all of her time back. So I don't know exactly what other role time has in the game. There's definitely some concept art floating out there of an adult Hat Kid, which is funny because we had this little joke that Hat Kid looks kind of like Zero Suit Samus with her hairstyle, but just brunette and a chibi. So the fact that she has a grappling hook that functions very similarly to the one in Metroid Prime, it's kind of funny to me. It's like an alternate universe take on Samus, where she's...
Well, yeah, the joke that we had ongoing was the fact that this was a Federation Force prequel.
Yeah, with the chibi bodies and all that, yeah.
Yeah, it's the lead up, the build up, then she joins the Force, yeah. Anyway,
yeah,
that lore is to be determined at this point. The game's not out, who's to say? You know, it's probably as close as Ness is to Sans, but...
But hey, Gears for Breakfast, if you're listening to this commentary, you can have that idea if you want to sneak that in.
That one's for free, yeah.
Yeah.
We give you complete copyright use of the Metroid property.
Yep. So looking at textures right now, this is another part of the face that was just kind of flat projected onto the face surface. So none of the facial features actually have like form. It's all just kind of flat, just like Toon Link, just like Villager. Doing a little bit of detail on the hair.
I like that for the eyes. Instead of just flipping the UVs on the eyes, you you just created a new set in the texture for it and then duplicated it down.
Yeah. So because one of the things that I didn't want to do is have the specular on the eye like flip over.
Flip as well, yeah.
Yeah. Eventually, I took the eyes and separated them out into their own UV map so that I could pose the eyes by just shifting the UV islands on the texture, but you don't get to see that. Sorry, guys. This umbrella, Andrew was joking that it looks sort of like the Pixar ball. I thought that was kind of funny. But here's posing.
I mean, we were just talking about Gino and those colors, that star, that reminds me
of
Gino.
Yeah. Definitely. You know, this was fun. This was an interesting challenge, trying to get that umbrella, that big umbrella and that big hat to work together well and not intersect each other too much. This was like maybe the fifth pose idea that I had, and the Gears guys liked it a lot, so we went with it. And it's funny because the umbrella is way too small to be functional, like to protect you from rain, but I guess that's not why she has it.
She's got a top hat. That'll protect most of her, right?
Yeah, I mean, if she's a space traveler, like, why does she need an umbrella? There's no rain in space, so maybe that's why the umbrella doesn't actually protect from rain. It's just a weapon. I don't know. Maybe that's why.
Yeah, who knows?
That's my headcanon.
Maybe far out there's some space rain.
Space rain, yeah. For sure. Fun. I don't know what planet she's from. That's another mystery. Maybe she's like a long lost. Maybe she's like a long lost human that her family like got lost in space and now she's on her own. I'm like interpolating all of these different crazy ideas.
We're making a lot of fan fictions during this, obviously.
Yeah.
We expect them all to be canon now. I love watching the cape because now it's time to sculpt it because it's been moved enough and it's always fun.
Now it's set in stone. We can no longer pose it with the rig or anything like that. It's all committed to, and that's kind of scary when that happens. It's like this pose better be the right pose because this is the cape now. Yeah,
we're pushing time into it. What's going on here where it's like you're modifying the original model but it's then editing the
so you can actually view the rigged mesh but also modify the original T-pose mesh so you can see where it would end up, which is a nice feature.
Fun.
Yeah,
that's interesting to me. I love that.
Yeah, it's pretty nice.
Showing off the ponytail a little bit at the end.
Yeah, yep. With the little hole in the back of the hair on her head.
I really enjoy a pose like this where you kind of get a little bit of everything, you know?
Yeah, definitely.
A little bit of the hair, a little bit of the dress, the bottom of the shoes even. Like, everything's got its time.
Yeah.
In the sunshine.
Everything gets shown off. We don't have to leave anything behind. But I'm really happy with these materials. I like how the skin turned out, especially with a little bit of Photoshop help. It definitely feels in style, so... Pretty happy with this one, yeah.
Great, yeah, it's fantastic.
Well, you guys, thanks for watching. As always, you can find the links to all of our social media in the description if you're interested in following us there. And that's it for this one. So be sure to subscribe if you like stuff that we make. And if you really like the stuff that we make, then maybe even consider becoming a patron on Patreon, where you can help us create more things like this. And also be sure to check out Gumroad and see some cool art assets and tutorials there.
Yep.
Also, you want to let them know what's happening?
What's happening?
Smashified Live, yeah.
Oh yeah, let's mention Smashified Live. That's a thing that we're trying to do at least once a month now. Trying to do. And so if you'd like, you should comment down below as to which simple character please, you'd like to see an upcoming Smashified Live episode, because as I just said, we're trying to get this out more, and it'd be exciting if you could suggest a few.
Yeah, also check out Hat Kid. Check out Hat in Time. Do it.
It's a great game. We love it. We haven't played it, but we love it.